Okay, we're going to start the program now. For those just to give a brief introduction, today's program is in the memory of Eric Rahim, who has been a very staunch Marxist, has done tremendous work in the economic world, has done a lot of work for um, poor people as well, disenfranchised populations, and we are helping the organization of this event. And to start off our presentation, I thought I would do a bit of an intro about Eric Rahim and his life and his work. But I think more than me, the perfect person would. But I think more than me, the perfect person to do this would be Joanna, who will talk about from the life that Eric spent and the work that he did. And so I will hand it over to her to start the presentation. And just one final word is, like, I'm also really thankful to Ithaca Institute of Social Sciences for giving us this space for convening this session together. Ithaca has been working since 1991 within Pakistan, within Karachi, for the labor movement, for other cross-intersectional movements, working together for the common people for various causes. And so with that brief introduction, I would like to hand it over to Joanna to start off with the presentation. Joanna, if you can.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour to Eric's background. He was born in the newly created Christian village of Montgomery in the district of Faisalabad, and he was one of 10 children of
Joanna, sorry to interrupt. We can't see your screen. We can just see a black screen. It looks like not sharing.
It is sharing.
No, we can't see it.
Oh, shoot. Thank you, John. Karam, I thought that you said that you could see my screen.
But now it's gone again.
No, it's just gone black.
Okay. Can you steadily share it again? I saw like multiple screens, but then not the presentation.
Can you see that?
No, it's still just your name. Karam, I'll just try to share. I've got a dialog box that's popped up saying host disabled participant screen sharing. I think maybe you need to, as the host, just allow everybody to be able to share the screen.
I make Joanna the co-host right now, so it should be.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Right.
Let me see if I can also make you the host as well, a co-host as well in the meantime.
It says to me that it is sharing.
So I can see
it's not sharing the presentation though, Joanna. It's mirroring the screen.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what's happening here, John. If I I've emailed the presentation.
I've got the presentation open.
Yeah, it's not sharing the presentation right now.
Okay, if you Karam, if you allow me to share, let's see if I can share.
And I'll stop sharing. Okay, I've just stopped sharing.
Okay. So I'm still getting the dialog box saying host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think you just need to make me the host temporarily.
Joanna, can you make John the host? As a co-host, I can't do that.
Karam, it doesn't show me as a co-host here.
Let me kind of leave and join again, and I would have host.
Okay.
Hello, Uncle Ivan.
Yeah, so now I should be the host. Let me make John. Let me try to make John the host. John, you should have host permissions now.
Yeah, let me try. Cool. Can you see my screen?
Great. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you put it in
Thanks.
present? Brilliant.
Yeah. Can you see it full screen now?
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's go.
Thank you. So slide 2, please.
This one?
Eric,
Or-
yep,
sorry.
this one.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
So Eric was born in the newly created Christian village of Montgomery in the district of Faisalabad, one of 10 children of Eric Rahim Khan and Rose Massey. Our grandfather and Ivan's father is on the left and his mother is on the right. And Rose was actually a teacher before she started her family. So education and the medical world were essential parts of Eric's family's makeup. 2 of his aunts became doctors, 1 became a nurse, and 3 became school teachers. His uncle Emmanuel, shown on the right here, was the divisional medical officer for the Northwestern Railway, and Eric's father, Teray, managed the family estate. His mother, Rose, came from an Indian military family who were also Christians, and they were working with the British. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. Back one, John. That's it. So Eric attended the Bering School in Batala and gained his Bachelor of Arts from the Forman Christian College in Lahore, just around the time of partition in 1947. And at the time he joined the college, it was impossible to be unaware of the political developments that were unfolding. Student organizations, offshoots of the Congress, the Muslim League, and the Communist Party were all active on the campus. Students were debating politics and arguing among themselves. And despite Eric's family being wealthy by the standards of the time, he always saw families who lived in extreme poverty, helped by his mother, always behind his father's back, who deemed the poor either lazy or stupid. And as a result, he leaned into a socialist worldview. Next slide, please, John. In 1948, his interest drew him into the world of journalism. And Eric was an active member of the Communist Party when, in June 1954, most of the unit were arrested, himself included. The arrests were made under the safety laws, which gave the government powers to keep anyone in indefinite preventative detention. Those arrested included students, writers, journalists, and trade unionists. They were given ridiculous charge sheets. One was accused of being a Fabian communist. Eric was accused of spying for India and the Soviet Union. But Eric later recalled that life in jail was not unduly unpleasant. They were treated as political prisoners, kept together in a barrack-like accommodation separate from the ordinary criminals. They were allowed to cook their own food with the help of an ordinary criminal who was assigned to them as an assistant. Newspapers, including the Times of India, were allowed in, and friends and relatives kept up a regular supply of books. But books with the names of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and so forth were, or if the book was published in Moscow, was not allowed. Books with the titles such as An Introduction to Dialectical Materialism and published in London were considered harmless. Among the works that Eric read were all the volumes of Winston Churchill's war memoirs and Tolstoy's War and Peace and Anna Karenina. But by the middle of 1955, most of those arrested had been released, including Eric. However, the Karachi Communist Party had dwindled and Eric returned to full-time journalism. Next slide, thank you, John. In 1958, he obtained leave to study at University College London for an economics degree, with the intention to return as a senior economics commentator for the Pakistan Times. Eric's departure was delayed until eventually the authorities consented to release his passport, and he was permitted to join the degree course a few weeks later. However, very rapidly, the political situation changed dramatically. Martial law was imposed by Field Marshal Ayub Khan. The Pakistan Times was taken over, and with his political background, there was no going back. Next slide, John. In 1961, graduating from University College with a first-class honours degree in economics, the university gave him a 2-year research grant to complete a PhD in the subject. During this time, he met and married my mother, Edith, a young woman from Vienna learning English in London. Edith and Eric had a long and happy relationship, spending every summer in Austria with family members until her death in 2017. In 1963, Eric was appointed lecturer in economics at the newly created University of Strathclyde, and the couple made Glasgow their home. Next slide, John. In 1971, he was promoted to senior lecturer, and in 1973, transferred to the newly created David Livingstone Institute of Overseas Development Studies. He became the director of the British government-funded research project on choice of technology, editing 7 monographs, which were published by the Scottish Academic Press. And during this time, and under the auspices of the Institute, he taught at the universities of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia and of Ghana in Legon and Accra. Next slide. Thank you, John. Almost 20 years later, Eric took early retirement from the university with a commitment to teach part-time, and he also took on an assignment with the United Nations Economic Commission for Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok, editing their annual economic and social reports. At the same time, he established relations between the economics department at the University of Strathclyde and the Government College, University Lahore, and the University of Peshawar. 4 years after that, he was appointed Associate Managing Editor of the Journal of Economic Studies. And at this time, he was appointed as an honorary senior lecturer in the economics department of Strathclyde University, a position which he held right up until his death. Next slide, John. So from the 1980s onwards, Eric had contributed regularly to academic journals, and in 2020, he published a book on Karl Marx's early life, A Promethean Vision, jointly published by Praxis Press and the Marx Memorial Library in London. It was republished in the same year by Folio Books in Lahore. At the time of his death, he was working on a paper with the title Marx's Economics, an Introduction, and on a pair of papers focusing on the life and intellectual contribution of Piero Sraffa, the noted Italian economist. And these were published posthumously in the Criterion Quarterly. So it's fitting that a man who was inquiring by nature and an educator by profession worked right up until the last few days of his life. Now, tomorrow would have been his 96th birthday. So I ask you all to join me in saying, happy birthday, Eric. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, Eric, and thank you, Joanna, for such a wonderful presentation, walking us through all of that. And apologies for going in and out of the presentation due to poor internet connections from our side. But yeah, I would like to then invite Khalid Aftab, if he could say a few words, because I know we have to also go on. Please, Khalid Saab.
Hope you can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Dr. Eric Rahim was an extraordinary person of many dimensions. Without doubt, he has left a rich legacy to us. I think his legacy has 2 dimensions. First, his contribution to human well-being, and second, commitment to the ideal of academic excellence by means of extensive research. The latter is evident from Eric Rahim's writings on Marx and Sraffa, particularly on the theory of value. That is Eric's intellectual legacy to us. This fascinating work requires detailed discussion, which isn't possible here. I met Eric more than half a century ago in 1971 in Glasgow. I had just enrolled in the MSc Development Economics program of the Strathclyde University. He taught us economic theory. The newly launched program had 15 students from different countries. By chance, 4 of them were Pakistanis: Mehrun Nisa, Muhammad Khan Chikzai, Ejaz Qureshi, and me. Eric lectured in a soft voice, shared his profound views based on deep understanding of the subject and long experience. This approach helped the students in understanding the economic concepts, theories, and models. I liked his teaching style and soon built a good rapport with him. He was an inspiring teacher, warm, perceptive, knowledgeable, and pragmatic, and a good role model for the young students. Over the years, he gave a lot as a teacher and guide to so many. Eric's innovative ideas inspired several young economists and others who excelled in different professions because of him. His interest in art, music, theater, literature, history, and particularly politics encouraged students to delve into new areas of knowledge, leaving a deep impression on the intellectual development. Built on his personal experience, Eric had a deep insight of the political systems of the South Asian countries, particularly Pakistan. And he was always ready to share his thoughts on the recurring socio-economic challenges of the region. He was well aware of how economic policies are made in the developing countries and who are the players behind the scene. What worried him was the resistance to change in the political system in Pakistan. He attributed it to military, politicians, bureaucracy, partnership over 75 years, which stood in the way of country's progress and people's welfare. Dr. Eric Rahim remained especially concerned about the welfare of underprivileged people of Indo-Pakistan subcontinent and emphasized importance of framing stable policies for sustained progress in the region. His invaluable support for Sola's Educational Trust, a charity dedicated to the task of educational uplift in the underdeveloped northern areas of Pakistan, is indeed an excellent example of the ongoing humanitarian work, which shall be a permanent source of progress and enlightenment for the generations to come. I believe there can't be a better tribute to Eric Rahim than a resolve by his friends and admirers to promote progressive culture in the South Asian region for the benefit of masses. After completing MSc degree in Scotland, I returned to Pakistan, but got another opportunity to enroll as PhD student under Dr. Eric Rahim's supervision, who then worked in the David Livingstone Institute of Overseas Development Studies in the Strathclyde University. Over time, I had developed keen interest in the theory of growth of firm and wished to explore the phenomena of emergence, survival, and growth of small firms in the oligopolistic market, particularly in a developing country. Eric too liked the subject and agreed to supervise my work if I could collect primary data in Pakistan. The survey-based collection of primary data on micro and small and large firms in Pakistan was a rewarding experience. Based on their data, we published 2 papers on the subject in the Journal of Development Studies in 1986 and 1989. These publications were well received and are still used as reference by current researchers according to ResearchGate website. Let me tell you that each intimation from the ResearchGate about our publications thrilled Eric. He never missed an opportunity to share the good news with me. In fact, we were equally pleased to know that our work in the 1980s is still being acknowledged by researchers today. Eric remained a dedicated scholar of Karl Marx and Piero Sraffa, 2 influential economists of the century. As you know, Sraffa was part of the Cambridge group of Marxists during the interwar period. Apart from other extensive work in the area, Eric Rahim produced an important book titled A Promethean Vision, Formation of Karl Marx's Worldview. This book presents a beautiful account of how Karl Marx came to develop his materialist conception of history. Eric traced the process through numerous writings of Marx and pointed out the continuity in Marx's thought as seen in his early and later writings, thus clarified a misconception created by the commentators of the time. He held the view that the materialist conception of history was not intended by Marx to describe social reality, nor was it a model from which social reality could be deduced. It was a conceptual framework or a model used as a guide to interpreting reality, the working of capitalist mode of production. Therefore, historical development does not follow a definite plan in which one mode of production inevitably follows from the previous one. Reality is produced in large part through conscious human activity. Human beings actively combine to produce, for good or ill, these forces. He emphasized that Marx didn't produce some general historical philosophical theory, but a conceptual framework for historical investigation. This idea says a lot about the shape of socioeconomic organization of a future communist society. In a review of this book, Professor David McClellan, the president of the Marx Memorial Library, London, pointed out that this book is particularly relevant in the opportunities that the growing environmental crisis give us to rethink the fundamental shape of our society. It goes on to say that a society based on want is at odds with based on need. Wants are unlimited, needs aren't. Capitalism can't exist without continuous growth. Socialism has no such imperative. So Marx's materialist conception of history has provided us with a way to think through these alternatives, and there is no better guide to Marx's conceptions than Eric Rahim's excellent book. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for that really excellent breakdown of what really makes Marxism so interesting and relevant for us in our current times, and how Eric has really approached that work throughout his whole career. You know, that was really wonderful here. Thank you for that, Khalid Saab. Next person I would like to invite would be John, who is Eric's son. John, if you could maybe briefly introduce yourself and say a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you've done it. I'm John. I'm Eric's son. I don't have a presentation like Joanna. I've got some notes, which means that nothing's going to crash. And I just want to spend a few minutes just talking about my father, my dad, rather than talking about his kind of political achievements, really what he was like as a person. But I'd just like to start by saying thank you to Bina, Alina, and everybody else who's responsible for putting together this memorial. When my dad was sick, he was very concerned that everybody was going to forget about him and that his friends were going to forget about him and kind of move on. And I kept telling him that that wasn't the case, and that people will remember him for a long time. And he touched so many people's lives. So it's lovely to see this event happening today, as Joanna said, the day before my 96th birthday, and he'd be extremely touched that everybody's taken the time. So I'd like to talk about his friends. So after he died, when he was ill, it kind of became apparent to me, oh, I can see myself, how scary, that he kind of had three kind of buckets of friends, old friends, many of whom are on the call today. He kind of knew him when he was younger, when he was kind of politically active. work friends who he kind of met after 1963. But these people were kind of extremely important in his life. And again, I was at one of his friends' funerals last month, Roy Grieve, who sadly passed away. And I was chatting to Muzammil Haq, who's on the call. And we talked about my dad and kind of how he kind of made an impact in everybody's life. And I knew from the many conversations I had with Muzammil whilst my father was ill, how much he meant to, how much my dad meant to Muzammil, and how much also Muzammil and his family also meant to, not just to my dad, but our family as well. We knew them for a very long time. I knew them all my life. And yeah, that was, that's important. And I think the third area of kind of friends really is, his community in Gifnick. And it was quite surprising that when he came to Gifnick, he was in the same house for over 50 years. And whilst he was there, he met some lifelong friends. Obviously, people like Muzammil and Kumkum and Roy and Aileen frequently came to the house for dinner, but pretty much all of the lecturers and the people who was working with at Strathclyde came and visited at some point, and Joanna and I will remember many dinners that we had with many of his kind of his friends. My dad wouldn't have been the person he was if it wouldn't have been for my mother. I think he'd been quite a different person, and sometimes it can be overlooked, the importance not just of my mum, but what she kind of brought to the party. They, as Joanna mentioned, were married in 1963 in Vienna, and they were married for 54 years before my mum passed away in 2017. My mother introduced him to lots of things that became really synonymous with who my father was. So I think the first one would be his love of classical music. My mother came from a very musical family, even though they didn't play any instruments. They had a great love for classical music and opera. And my father just took to it in a big way. And I think Ivan, you'd probably agree as well, Uncle Ivan, who's on the call, that my grandparents in Vienna played a large part actually in my father's life and really kind of his happiness. My mum also did stuff which my dad wouldn't have done by himself. So she was very into travel, and they traveled also all over the world, going to Syria and Afghanistan, and this was all done before the internet. So this is done through travel books and everything else. And every year we'd go to Vienna, and Joanna will remember, myself, many happy summers we had in places like Heiligenkreuz and with Ivan and Barbara back in the 70s. So how would I remember my father? Well, for me, he was very supportive. And when I was young, he gave me the freedom to express myself and do what I wanted, which I think, looking back, perhaps wasn't the most sensible thing, but there you go. He was very kind and thoughtful. So he was a person who, if you had a problem, you could go to him, and he would never kind of judgmental. And he was always very kind of supportive and loving as well. So he wasn't just a good friend, as everybody's kind of talking about today, but he was a wonderful kind of human being as well, and very kind person. So when he was diagnosed just over a year now, 15th of January last year in 2023, and he had quite a few kind of issues. He had a number of falls a couple of years before that, but we didn't really know what was wrong with him. And after a very happy Christmas in London, where he spent time with myself and Joanna and her daughter, as well as his uncle and aunts, so his brothers and sisters in Essex, he took a turn for the worst. So I went back up to Scotland and was told the diagnosis that he had terminal cancer, and he had brain, kidney, and lung cancer, and he had 3 months left to live. He slightly kind of outlived that, but it was quite quick. And what he was very happy about during that period was that everybody really wanted to help and to get to kind of show their kind of concern, which really kind of touched him in many respects. He passed away at home in the house that he'd lived at for more than 50 years. in a room that he'd spent many hours kind of entertaining many of you on the call today, and listening to the classical music which he loved in the background. So he passed away very peacefully in a manner that he would have wanted. And I think the last thing I'd just like to say is also thanks to Khaled Aftab, who was in continual kind of contact whilst my dad was ill. But also wrote a lovely obituary for my dad, which was included in the order of service. We didn't expect it, and it came out of nowhere, and it was very kind, and it was a very kind thought. So I'd just like to say thank you for doing that. It was very much appreciated at the time. So that is it. That's it for me. So on to the next person.
Thank you, John, so much for taking us through not only his work but also his personal interests. It's like really what made Eric smile a lot. Like really that's really important in life, to remember those moments of joy and wonder. Thank you so much for that. I would like to ask if it's possible for Zakia Sarwar to speak at this moment. Would that be possible?
Khurram, I think she's not here. She's traveling, actually. She's in Ahmedabad right now, so I don't think she's joined. Sorry.
Yeah, would you like to speak? Would you like to kind of go at your own schedule? In that case, then I think Amir Saab, I think the floor is over to you. Can you please introduce yourself, what your relationship was to Eric, and what you want to share today? Yes,
मेरा नाम आमिर रियाज है और मैं एक ਲੈਫਟ ਦਾ ਦਿਖਾਲਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੱਢਣਾ था ਲਾਹੌਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਵਾਮੀ ਜਮਹੂਰੀ ਫੋਰਮ ਤੇ ਅਵਾਮੀ ਜਮਹੂਰੀ ਫੋਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਰਿਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਛਾਪਿਆ ਸੀ 2010 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀ। ਉਹਦੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਮਨਜ਼ੂਰ ਔਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਅਜ਼ੀਜ਼ੁਦੀਨ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਈਮੇਲ ਤੇ ਰਾਬਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ। ਪਹਿਲੇ ਉਹ ਮਜ਼ਮੂਨ ਛਾਪਿਆ ਉਰਦੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਰਜਮਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਜਿਹੜਾ 2010 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਾਪਿਆ ਔਰ 2010 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 2021 ਤੱਕ ਮਤਲਬ ਨਵੰਬਰ 2021 ਤੱਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਬਤਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਔਰ ਕਾਫੀ ਈਮੇਲ ਐਕਸਚੇਂਜ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਔਰ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਲੈਫਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿਸ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਹੋਈ। ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਛਾਪਿਆ ਉਹ ਬਜ਼ਾਤੇ ਖੁਦ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲੈਫਟ ਦਾ ਆਰਕਾਈਵ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਉਹਦੀ ਬੜੀ ਅਹਿਮ ਹੈਸੀਅਤ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੀਰੀਅਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲੈਫਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ 48 ਤੋਂ 57 ਤੱਕ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਿਸਕਨਸੈਪਸ਼ਨ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ। ਦੇਖੋ ਐਰਿਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ 1928 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਏ ਸਨ ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਜ਼ਾਹਿਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਟਾਈਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਕੋਈ 82 ਸਾਲ ਹੈ ਔਰ 82 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪੱਕੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਨ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਦਰ ਟੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਰਵਾਇਤੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਸੋਚ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਈਵਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਲੋਨੀਅਲ ਸੋਚ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਉਨ ਦੋਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਗੁੰਜਾਇਸ਼ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹਦੀ ਮੁਖਤਲਿਫ ਵਜੂਹਾਤ ਨੇ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਐਰਿਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਵੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਵਿਆਹ ਦੇ ਦੌਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਂਟੀ ਵਿਆਹ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈਫਟਿਸਟ ਹੋਇਆ ਆਪ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੈਫਟਿਸਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਔਰ ਬਾਕੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੇ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਔਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਵੀ। ਸੋ ਐਸੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹੀ ਇੱਕ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਐਰਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰੀਏ। ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਾਇਓਗ੍ਰਾਫਿਕਲ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਲੰਬਾ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ, ਪਰ 14-15 ਹਜ਼ਾਰ ਵਰਡਸ ਦਾ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਸੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਜ਼ਾਹਿਰ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਈਮੇਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਈ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਾਜ਼ਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਐਸੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਾਹਿਰ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲੰਘਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੰਦਾ ਲੰਘਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਬਿਆਨ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਹੋਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਕਿਤਾਬੀ ਇਲਮ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਸੁਣਿਆ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਲੰਘਾਇਆ ਹੋਗਾ। ਔਰ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਾਜ਼ਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਸੀਬ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਇੰਨੀ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਨਾਲ ਕਲੋਨੀ ਦਾ ਕਲਚਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਹਵਾਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਐਸੀ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਔਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪੂਰੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ 'ਚ ਕਰਨਾ ਲੋਕ ਪਸੰਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਨਵਰਜਨ ਦਾ ਫਨੋਮੀਨਾ। ਕਨਵਰਜਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜੈਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ, ਬੁੱਧਾਂ ਤੋਂ, ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਜਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਤੇ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਨਵਰਜਨ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਨਸਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਹ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ। ਤੇ ਐਰਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਾਦੇ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਬਦੁਲ ਰਹੀਮ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਸੀ, ਔਰ ਉਹ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨੀ ਤੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਮਸੀਹ ਹੋ ਗਏ। ਔਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਮਸੀਹ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਮੁਰੱਬਾ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਵੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਕਲਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ, ਮਤਲਬ ਲੁਕਾਇਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਮਤਲਬ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਕਟਰੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਤੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਮਿਸ਼ਨਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਡਾਕਟਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਉਹਨੇ ਹਾਸਲ ਕੀਤਾ। ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਐਰਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਆਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ, ਔਰ ਉਸ ਮਜ਼ਮੂਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹ ਲੋਕ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਦੇਖੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਭੇਜਿਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜੀ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਕਿਆ ਸੁਣਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਟਾਲੇ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ, ਤੇ ਬਟਾਲੇ ਉਹ ਬੋਰਡਿੰਗ ਸਕੂਲ 'ਚ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ, ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ 2 ਅਹਿਮਦੀ ਆ ਗਏ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਨਾਬ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਸੀਹਤ ਔਰ ਅਹਿਮਦੀਅਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਲੱਭਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਹੁਣ ਐਰਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਾਦਰੀ ਕੋਲ ਚਲੇ, ਔਰ ਉਹ ਪਾਦਰੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕਨਵਰਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਮਸੀਹ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਮਸੀਹ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਂਟੀ ਅਹਿਮਦੀਅਤ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਨ ਉਹ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸਨ। ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤਾਰਫ ਕਰਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ 2 ਅਹਿਮਦੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਮਸੀਹਤ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਡਾਂਟਿਆ ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਭਜਵਾਤਾ, ਦੋਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਔਰ ਨਾਰਾਜ਼ ਹੋਇਆ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਵਾਕਿਆ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵੈਸੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਕਨਵਰਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਮੁਖਤਲਿਫ ਕਿਸਮ ਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਨੋਮੀਨਾ ਹੈ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਉਣ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੇਜ਼ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਹਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਪੁਆੜੇ ਵੀ ਪਾਏ। ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਮਿਸ਼ਨਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਆ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਆਰੀਆ ਸਮਾਜੀ, ਸਿੱਖ, ਮੁਸਲਿਮ ਧਰਮੀ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਮੁਨਾਜ਼ਰੇ ਕੀਤੇ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਵੀ ਬਣਾਏ, ਔਰ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ, ਮੈਂ ਆਪ ਡੌਨ ਬਾਸਕੋ ਤੋਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ, ਫਿਰ ਐਸਸੀ ਕਾਲਜ ਤੋਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ, ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਫਿਨੋਮੀਨਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਐਰਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਆਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੜੀ ਸਮਝਣ ਵਾਲੀ। ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ, ਮੈਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਲਿਖਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਲਿੱਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਹੈਗੇ, ਲਿੱਦਰ ਅਤੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੈਗਾ ਡਿਫੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਲਾਹੌਰ, ਇੱਕ ਉਹ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਨ ਐਸਸੀ ਕਾਲਜ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਉਂਦੇ, ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਦਾਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਤੋਂ ਉਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਹੋਏ। और फिर पीपल पब्लिशिंग हाउस जान लग गए और 40s ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ और एससी कॉलेज पढ़ रहे थे। ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਸੀਹਤ ਛੱਡ ਦੇਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਬਟਾਲੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸਾਂ ਬੋਰਡਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡਦੇ ਵਕਤ ਜੋ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ, ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਸੀਹਤ ਛੱਡ ਰਿਹਾ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ। ਯਾਨੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਿਖਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਛੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਸਫਰਿੰਗ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਿਆਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਵਰਨਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਵੱਡੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਨੇ, ਬਹੁਤ ਚੀਨ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਨਸਾਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਸਾਕਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਲੰਘ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜੀ ਅੱਛੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਕਰ ਲੈਫਟ ਦੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ
आमिर
जी
आमिर साहब आप बस प्लीज आपकी बात 1 मिनट में पूरी कर लीजिए।
जी
आप अपनी बात 1 मिनट में पूरी कर लीजिए।
हाँ जी खत्म कर देते हैं। ਲੈਫਟ ਦੇ ਹਵਾਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੰਨਾ ਕਹਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਾਚੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ, ਇੱਕ ਤੇ ਲੈਫਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਵੈਸੇ ਹੀ ਆਰਕਾਈਵ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਔਰ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਬਣਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਮੁਨਜ਼ਮ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਔਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹਿਮ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਆਖਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲੈਨਿਨਿਸਟ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਬਜਾਏ ਇੱਕ ਜਮਹੂਰੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੁਨਿਆਦੀ ਸਵਾਲਾਤ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਏ। ਲਓ ਜੀ ਮੁਕਾਤਾ जी।
थैंक यू, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका। क्या क्या ये मुमकिन होगा कि आप थोड़ी मुख्तसर सी समरी अंग्रेजी में दे सकें? आपने करा है
ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ।
चले
ਹਾਂ
चले फिर हम बाद में रिकॉर्डिंग देख के हम उसको कर लेंगे इसी से।
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਨਾਲ ਭੇਜ ਦੇਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ।
So we'll watch the recording later and we'll like maybe do a quick summary of what Amir Saab said. So but for now, I would then like to ask if Bina can speak on her relationship with Eric Sahab and how her work has been influenced by his presence and his thought.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Khurram. And hello, Joanna and John. It's good to see John. I haven't seen Joanna yet, but it's good to see also the other friends of Uncle Eric. As I don't know if you can hear me properly. I'm in a place where I'm on a speaker and there's a loud fan in the background. Hi, Alina. Good to see you also. And it's wonderful. Uncle Eric kind of in a way brings us together. After he has passed away. I learned actually of Uncle Eric's passing some months after he had passed on, because I was trying to reach him to inform him about my aunt, Shahida Haroon's passing in Karachi, because I knew he would want to know. He was very close to Shahida Pupi, to my aunt. And then I don't know, I think somebody sent me, somebody sent me the obituary notice that Joanna had published, and then her article in The Guardian. So just to explain the relationship, my personal relationship with Uncle Eric, he was a member of my Yahoo group that I had started in soon after the nuclear blasts of Pakistan and India, and I called it Bina Issues. It was a Yahoo group, and Uncle Eric was on the list, and I would just send, things that I found interesting, and he'd occasionally reply. And so we had a email relationship, and I don't even remember the last time I actually met him, but he was a very prominent presence in my life always, because he was although he was just a couple of years older than my father, he was a mentor to my father, and they really loved each other very much. So when my aunt Shahida was going to Lahore to Punjab University for a second master's in social work, Uncle Eric was living there. So my older uncle, Akhtar, who was a journalist as well, he asked Uncle Eric to look after my aunt Shahida. And Uncle Eric was then a columnist at the Pakistan Times. And he went and he met Shahida, my puppy, at the train station after her overnight journey. And he was kind of her guardian, although, you know, he was not that much older. And then he had met my uncle Akhtar when after 1949, when my Akhtar Chacha was got a job as a sports reporter at Dawn, and Uncle Eric was then a columnist there. And my father was in medical college, and he launched the Democratic Students Federation, which is considered to be Pakistan's first nationwide student movement. And I know that Uncle Eric was a mentor and an advisor to that movement. And I know that Uncle Eric and my Uncle Akhtar were members of the Communist Party of Pakistan. But my father supported it, but he kept party politics out of student union activities, and he discouraged students, the comrades, from bringing party literature into campuses. And he said because that's divisive, and he was trying to, you know, build student unity. And then my aunt Shahida, who he encouraged to run for the student union, I learned later that I learned when I was doing this research for the documentary that I think many of you have seen, Aur Niklenge Ushaq ke Kafle, There Will Be More Caravans of Passion, that outlined what those the calls for student rights were, like more equitable fee structures, better laboratory and library and hostel facilities, and a purpose-built university for Karachi, and security of employment. And this is, of course, a narrative that the schools and history textbooks completely ignore. Then, of course, their friend, the poet and the editor of Pakistan Times, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, was already behind bars in the Rawalpindi conspiracy case of 1951. And Uncle Eric wrote, he was so generous in his tributes to other friends, and I've often been privy to his emails to another friend, Naseem Chacha, SM Naseem, who unfortunately because of illness would not be able to join today. But somehow I was like a younger, like they like to email each other with me, copied to me. So I often, you know, was privy to their reminiscences on email, which they would also be sharing with me. And I was kind of seen as a record keeper, I guess, in a way. And I think Uncle Eric wrote in an obituary for Dr. Ghalib, you know, whose funds is what started the Solas Fund that Khalid Aftab Sahab just mentioned. And he had written that there was a quote, and I'm quoting from his article, that there was a general roundup in West Pakistan in the wake of the triumph of the United Front in East Pakistan elections of 1954 and the Pakistan government's decision to sign military pacts with the United States. And that's when there was this general roundup, and Faiz was caught up. And then my father was picked up, and then Uncle Eric was also arrested, as Joanna has mentioned, you know, accused of spying for India and the Soviet Union Security of Pakistan Act. And then my uncle Akhtar and the other Shakur and SM Naseem, they were also picked up, and they were also all in jail. And then Uncle Eric wrote to me in 2012, he said that they also, quote, enjoyed government hospitality in Karachi jail, and unquote. And then he also wrote how he appreciated the constant supply of books that my grandfather, Abdul Halim, brought to these political prisoners, without which, quote, without which the inmates would have found life even more difficult, unquote. And he wrote that to me in 2020. And then he wrote, quote, where did he get these books from? I remember reading all the volumes of Churchill's war memoirs. You had plenty of time, of course, that was supplied by him, that's my grandfather, and many others. I have fond memories of him. I'm grateful for his contribution to my education. I may also recall the way that the jail censorship worked. If a book was published in Moscow that was forbidden, as was a book with the name of Marx or Lenin on the cover page, but a book, for example, with the title of Dialectical Materialism and published in London, that was okay, unquote. And so from him, I got a lot of these little vignettes about their time in jail, and it informed my research and the documentary that I mentioned earlier. And then before he left for University College London in 1958, Uncle Eric went to Punjab University. And of course, there were no phones or anything at that time, but he sought out Shahida Pupi and he took her out for a goodbye lunch. And then when he got to London, he was greatly astonished, as he wrote, to run into his old comrade and former jailmate, Dr. Ghalib. And he wrote that in his obituary for Dr. Ghalib, which is online at drserver.wordpress.com. And I'll see if I can share the screen to show you that thing in a minute. And then that was a reminder, of course, that back then, even old comrades were in the dark about each other's whereabouts. And then, of course, as Joanna mentioned, he never could return to Pakistan except for occasional visits. My uncle Akhtar passed away, and Eric was in London. Uncle Eric was in London, and Zawar, my mother's brother, who was also a good friend of Uncle Eric's, also a journalist, he was also away at that time. And like I said, we mostly interacted mostly on email. Sometimes I would telephone him. And I remember once when I called him, he had classical music playing loudly in the background. And thank you, John, for explaining where that came from. And he said he had a salmon baking in the oven. And, you know, I learned later that Auntie Edith had passed away recently. And again, that was through an email that that SM Naseem sent later. And then he... when Ghalib, Dr. Ghalib mentioned that he wanted to study biochemistry, Uncle Eric wrote that he was surprised. And then he was planning to buy a flat on mortgage and get married to Auntie Edith in a few months. And then, quote, he says, "My would-be wife who knew Ghalib quite well, and I suggested that he stay with us and pursue his study." So he wrote that in his tribute to Ghalib Uncle. And so Ghalib Uncle lived with them for 2 years during his MSc course at Strathclyde University. And then it was around the year 2000 that Dr. Ghalib asked Uncle Eric to set up a charity to promote education with the money that he had saved, because he never married, he didn't have children. And so, as Uncle Eric writes, he set up the Solas Educational Trust with that fund. And he was proud of the work that Solas did, helping these non-profit community schools in Chitral and keeping Dr. Ghalib's original 100,000 intact in investments. And he was keen for his work to be shared in Pakistan. In November 2017, he sent me a compilation of his non-academic essays in the form of a short book, which I then, and he said it was for internet use only. I hope you like the collection. If you do, please circulate it among your friends. So I think that speaks to what John said, that he wanted to be remembered back in Pakistan, particularly that was so important for him. So I edited that collection, inserted a table of contents, converted it to a PDF, and then I posted it to Scribd. And its title was Marx, 100% Materialist, and Other Essays from a Marxist Perspective. And then in March 2020, Uncle Eric emailed me his manuscript of Karl Marx's early life that was published in London, and he wanted it to be published in Pakistan. So I contacted Bilal Zahoor, who runs Folio Books in Lahore, and he promptly obliged, and that was very well received in Pakistan. In fact, I just saw a copy at the Fairs Festival in Lahore in February. And he wrote to me in October 2022 about how his mobility was a little bit, was very limited, unquote, and he had balance issues. And he says, quote, "Otherwise, I'm active writing, just published a paper with the title Piero Sraffa, Doing History in Reverse," unquote. And he attached the essay that had been published by the Sage Journal of Interdisciplinary Economics. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from my interaction with Uncle Eric is when we were planning to commemorate the student movement in Karachi in January 2010, after my father had passed away, I would consult Uncle Eric on how to go about the event. And I said, you know, then it was like, why are we doing this? And then he wrote to me, and I'm quoting, "This is an important question, perhaps the question. Why do we commemorate now the events of 1953? And then he wrote, "Sarwar was a good man, a good friend, a lovable person, a significant personality, all reasons good enough to celebrate his life. But more than that, we celebrate his life because of his role in the student movement of the 1950s, a movement of which progressive people can still feel proud of. For me, Sarwar's passing away and the reactions and responses it evoked provided a great opportunity to celebrate that movement. But most important, we look back not to revel in nostalgia. We look back to look forward." And he wrote that in all caps. "For this, we need to consider the circumstances that led to the creation and development of that movement, the causes of that, of its decline, and to some extent, we need to understand what has happened, good as well as bad, during the intervening period. Now, this is a tall order, but we can make a start. And basically, Uncle Eric said, we need to do something that would advance, quote, again, I'm quoting, would advance our thinking on how to move forward. So looking back to look forward became the title of the event that we had in January 2010, commemorating that student movement. And we brought all the old student activists who we could get. Naseem Chacha could not be there, and Naseem was not there, I think, and Uncle Eric, of course, was not there. But we got them a standing ovation at Karachi University, at the Arts Council of Karachi, at Karachi Arts Council's open air auditorium, which seats about 1,000 people. It was a full hall, and it was really wonderful. So in that vein, I want to say that remembering Uncle Eric is not to revel in nostalgia, but to shine a light on the lives and aspirations of those who have gone before us, and to take their work forward. So that's what I would like to say here. And let me see if I can share that Uncle Eric's. Am I able to share my screen here?
Yeah, you should be able to. But can I ask you just keep it quick in like 1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure. So it's just drmserver.wordpress.com, and I just wanted to go to that because Uncle Eric, if you go to that and you search for Eric Rahim, you will find quite a lot of material about him there. Sorry. Okay, never mind. Actually, stop. It's not working right now. So I'll just end there. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. I would like if Dr. Alina can speak next and share with us what was her relationship with Uncle Eric and their few words.
Hello, it's afternoon here, so good afternoon, everyone. I will speak in English, but I might say some of the things when I'm talking about Uncle Eric and Auntie Edith. Some of the conversations we had with them in Urdu as well. I don't know if everyone can see me and hear me. Is that okay? Hello?
Yeah, we can see and hear you.
Okay, great. I think there's been so much said about Uncle Eric's work, and there are people better placed to talk about his work who have already spoken or will speak later. I knew Uncle Eric because, of course, of my late father, Dr. Ayub Mirza, and my mom, Shirin Gul Mirza. My father, Dr. Mirza, they were basically comrades from the 1950s movement. And my father was a student at Dow Medical College and part of the DSF movement, with Dr. Sarwar. And he shared the cell with he was in jail for a year due to being part of the student movement and being a communist when Uncle Eric and they were all in jail as well. And they were there in jail for a year. And like Bina said, at the expense of the government. My father, after a year, came out and then had to repeat his final year in medicine. And after that, he went into hiding in Rawalakot. So that northern area is still a hideout. Now, I don't know so much for the leftists, but certainly for other groups as well. And then my father came over to Britain, to UK. And at the same time, Eric was in Britain as well. And that's where their friendship continued. And I've got my husband, Dr. Suhail Ahmed, as well, because his family, his parents were also great friends with Eric and Edith. So I felt there are some of the things that, anecdotes we both share about him. I think in terms of the politics that Uncle Eric and my father, or the legends of that generation, because I think these people, Eric Rahim, Dr. Sarwar, S.M. Naseem, Uncle Barakat, who actually Uncle Eric introduced to us. Uncle Barakat also lived, was settled in Glasgow. Uncle Ghalib, all of these people of that generation were legends. I think as their children, we probably can't even strive to be 10% of what they did. And, you know, they are giants. And I always feel that for the sons of these giants, it's probably quite hard to live up to that. But saying that, it has been a privilege to be their children and be part of their struggles and their, political affiliations. Both, I would say that my father and Eric and that cadre, they strive for a better Pakistan where economic disparities would be less. Although, of course, we see that hasn't materialized, but as Meena said, their work remains a beacon and a seed for future. I also feel that both Eric and my father, yes, Meena, we are the leftovers, but we still have some life in us. So I would say that both in terms of economy and medicine, they are very much at the sharp end of the public life. And therefore, both my father and Eric strived to work towards reducing the economic disparity and improving public health and inequality, which couldn't be ignored at that time and still is there. So they both strive to do that in their own professional fields. Now, I think I'm not going to go on about the sort of more serious contributions, because like I said, a lot of people will comment and have commented. Joanna gave a comprehensive review as well. John, when he was talking, he made me tearful when he was talking about his dad as a father, that he was a kind person. My first memory of Eric was when they came to visit Pakistan. As both the families were living in UK, and I remember in 1963 when Faiz Ahmed Faiz got the Lenin Peace Prize, and then he came to UK, and my father held a function for him. And Faiz had said at that time to the Pakistanis living here, professionals, that come back to your country, serve your country. And of course, a lot of them said, yes, we will. Now, my father, as my mother said later, we always laugh about it. I'm saying it in this way because I think these are sort of anecdotes of these revolutionaries. And like my mother said, oh, तुम्हारा बाप बेवकूफ था, वो वापस यूके से चले गए, मैं तो खुश थी, वो जीपी थे और हमारी लाइफ सेट थी. So my dad felt very patriotic. I'm not saying others didn't feel patriotic, but he said, yes, I will go back to Pakistan. And he went back to Pakistan, and I was born in Pakistan. My older brother was already there. So, and I remember my father and my mother talking about that this conversation was held with Eric as well. And that Eric said, "Acha tu chalte, fir main bhi wapas aa jawanga." However, Eric never returned to Pakistan due to different, of course, reasons and challenges. And I feel that the history of how these comrades interacted with each other, how their long-term friendships went through ups and downs in terms of their own political thought development. There was an era later on. My first memory was then Eric and Edith came with Joanna and John, and we were all kids at that time. And my parents said that, listen, Eric and Edith are coming. He's my very old friend. He's an intellectual and blah, blah, all the sort of praises. And my mother said, Edith is a beautiful woman and she's a saint. And when I met Edith, and later on as well, because then I knew her for nearly 28 years, I would say, vouch for that Edith was a saint. I mean, the most beautiful human beings I have met. And Eric, Uncle Eric was also, if not a saint, a revolutionary, definitely, with a twinkle in his eyes and that beautiful, mischievous smile when he knew he had been up to mischief. So I remember meeting them, and then, of course, my parents had mentioned, but as a child, it doesn't sink in till you meet someone who he has, in terms of his speech, he would stammer. And I remember the first time we went in shock and I burst out laughing. And then it took us some time. And it's amazing that how he overcame that. And that's something as a personal challenge, people go through and don't realize. We all go through different challenges. But his humanity, his love, and for our family, and went through different times. From 1991, I moved to Britain and I married this guy, Sohail Ahmed, who writes under the name Sohail Sadi. And that's when then Uncle Eric and Edith, in a way, befriended us. They already were, of course, very close friends with Sohail's family, but they befriended us and in a way adopted us. Eric loved Sohail and Edith loved me. And Eric would say, Alina, you should let him write. And I would say, well, if he writes, then when am I going to write? Or when am I going to pursue my careers? Because who is going to do the housework? And he'd say, well, miljul ke kuch kar liya karo na. He would nod at me and wink at me and say, kar liya karo. And I would say, ha, acha theek hai, uncle. Acha, kuch kar lenge. So when I moved here, we used to go to their house, and as his students and other people would mention, we had the most wonderful. We had the most wonderful lunches and conversations. There were times when my parents would be visiting as well, and as old friends and political colleagues go, Eric had a habit of playing devil's advocate, and there would be heated discussions. So even though we were in our 40s, we would be all be quiet, and we would be like, oh God, these two elders are now fighting. And Edith will
Dr. Alina, sorry.
Ji.
Dr.
Yes.
Alina, sorry to interrupt you, but can you please, you have 1 minute, can you please?
Okay. So Eric would, sorry. So Edith would just say, Eric, come on, Eric. And Eric would have this mischievous look on his face and say, okay, theek hai. So I won't go on and on, but I think I would say that, like John said, Eric wouldn't be the same person without Edith. They both were a unit, and we had the best times in their company. Uncle Eric, when we bought this, and also when we moved to the West End and bought our flat, Sohail and I, we brought them to look at our flat. We didn't bring our parents, we brought them, and Eric said, buy it. John and Joanna always said to me, why didn't you move to the West End? So you must buy it and move. So we have been living here for so many years. But I would just say that Uncle Eric was, one of the finest of his generation, and we loved him. So Sohail, you can say one line now. I've been speaking nonstop.
Yes, this is an amazing event. It feels almost as though they're with us again, and they've got different experiences and views. It's almost like a person is like a moon, and everyone sees a different angle of the moon. And there's always a dark side to the moon as well, which is the interesting side. So this has been a wonderful set of reminiscences. And as you say, his work lives on and is very much a beacon for the future. People will draw on it, absolutely certain of that. And he certainly was always very encouraging of me in my attempts to write creatively. And, he was a very good constructive critic of work as well. And I really, really appreciate both of their Uncle Eric and Auntie Edith's input into that, and just their great humanity.
Yeah, and love to John and Joanna.
Yeah.
And thank you so much to Rahat Saeed Saab and Irtika. I cannot say enough. Some of the delay happened because of my reasons, which were out of my control. But they are the ones who initiated this, and we are all here together because of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And Alex says I also sends his regards. He apologized that he could not be here as he's also unwell. But yeah. And lastly, then I would like to ask Dr. Mohammed Nawaz if he could speak and also share with us once again how he got to know Eric Sahab. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Now we can hear you. Perfect.
Well, good afternoon to everybody. I'm speaking from UK. So I'm glad to see my old colleagues, my teachers, direct professor who taught me Ijaz Qureshi and Muzammil, Dr. Muzammil as well as. Well, initially I met Dr. Eric Rahim probably in 1984 in the office of Professor Ijaz Qureshi. Professor Ijaz Qureshi taught me, he's my teacher. He taught me economics. I was a student of economics in Sindh University. So I met Eric Rahim in the office of Ijaz Qureshi. Afterwards, I went for the PhD in State College University. I was admitted in David Livingstone Institute. I was offered MPhil leading to PhD in David Livingstone State College University. My supervisor was Dr. Girma Zawadi, who was also classmate of Dr. Professor Ijaz Qureshi. Well, after passing 2 hours, I realized that I'm not being properly supervised by the guide. On that account, I met Eric because of old meeting. He told me that Nawaz, you have chosen wrong person, and it's better you should change your supervisor. On that account, I gave an application. Eric was very kind to me, and I was accepted as a student under the supervision of Professor Kulinas Ross, who was a professor at State College University Department of Economics. Dr. Eric Rahim was my co-supervisor. And as everybody knows that he was very kind and generous to Pakistani students. He told me that you are from Pakistan and from Sindh, especially he likes we Sindhi people very much. I joined that department, and under his supervision, his guidance, I got my PhD successfully. And every year, I tried to call him on the eve of Christmas, saying hello and hi. He used to come to my house, and he also invited we people, my family, whole family. So I will not ask about his achievements, political achievements. He was comrade. Everybody knows his success and achievements, his struggle so far. But I would say that he was very generous, humble, very kind to me, and he had given me all support during my studies. And also he told me, Nawaz, you are the person who is getting PhD from State College University from Economics Department. I used to go to visit his house at Glasgow, and also he was very kind enough to visiting we people. He was very familiar with my family members, my daughters and sons. He was always talking about the economic condition of Pakistan as well as about the future of Pakistani masses. He was discussing with my sons and daughters regarding the betterment of Pakistan economy and the rule of law. Lastly, I met him in 2005 in the Department of Economics at State College University. Afterwards, I was calling on the eve of Christmas, and he was very nice and gentle person, helping hand to Pakistani students. And I'm very glad you people have given me a chance, because he was my mentor, he was my teacher, he was my supervisor, he was my co-supervisor. But he has done a lot of work on my thesis, and he has given me proper guidance. So that's all. That's kind of you. So nice of you. Bye. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I would just like to also say that Zakia Sarwar was also able to join us right now. And I would like to invite her to speak if she can. Zakia, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Can
great.
you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak for Eric Bhai. I know that he and Sabar were very close to each other, although I'm in Scotland, but every time we came to Pakistan, we would show that we spend time together. And he was somewhere in the true sense of the word, because he had his heart in the right place, and he loved Pakistan. He was concerned for Pakistan, like we all are, but you know, he, knowing his political acumen, he was able to see the darkness that was surrounding us at this time. And I also visited him in Scotland. I have very fond memories of his caring, gentle self, very matter of fact, no nonsense, and sometimes he would tell me off because I was being too excited about XYZ. So, it was a time when he guided me that I should speak in Edinburgh when I was with him, and it was a joy to be with someone like him, who's genuine, sincere, and I know that he's one of the few people who loved Sever from the bottom of his heart. He really, really cared for Sever very much, and that also was a source of comfort for me, that there was him there for Sever always. So the world is getting devoid of all the people that made it luminous and beautiful. And I only wish that his soul rests in peace. Thank you very much.
Okay. Uh, yeah, we are really glad that you could join us as well in the last few minutes to speak. Since you were the last speaker, it would be great if I would like to invite Dr. Ijaz if you want to speak some final words. इसी पे बोल रहे हैं वो उस पे I think आवाज नहीं आएगी. Because speaking final words about Eric Saab, and then after that we can have like a bit of an open discussion amongst ourselves.
Thank you very much, Forum. This has been a very nice discussion and program that we all spoke on Eric Rahim. I'm really a privileged person. He was my teacher for many, many years at Strathclyde University, Glasgow, where I did economics. And he was my supervisor. And then this actually continued as a friendship, honestly. And Joanna and John were very young kids at that moment. I'm talking of 74, 75, 76. So it was a wonderful time that I had with him. And then he kept on visiting us at University of Sindh at Yamshiro every year for many, many years that we were doing the consultancy work together on an irrigation project. So that was wonderful having him here and then arranging his lectures and things like that. Eric actually comes from Faisalabad, former Lalpur. His grandfather was Muslim, but then he changed to Christianity through the Christian missionary groups and all that. And then he became a doctor and continued his practice, and he had many children. Eric Rahim was his grandson, and who lately became a communist. And he was fond of Karl Marx and his writings, and he read much on Marxism, especially P.C. Joshi and others, the Indian authors. And he, in fact, joined the Communist Party in Pakistan in 50s, where Sobho Gyanchandani, Oumal, A.K. Hangal, Sajjad Zahir, Hassan Nasser, people like that who were with him, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, General Akbar. So he lived with them and was also arrested for some time as a part of the Communist Party. And then he had joined the press when he left Faisalabad and Lahore, came to Karachi, and he joined Dawn newspaper and worked for a little while there. And then he resigned from Dawn and went to Pakistan Times, where he enjoyed very much with Mia Iftikharuddin and others, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, and he continued for quite a long time. And from there, when he became communist, he wanted to read more, learn more on Karl Marx. Then he decided to come to London to study more and do something in economics. And that's what he did. He did his PhD in economics and then continue in Strathclyde University, Glasgow, as a teacher and a senior teacher and a professor. So as I already mentioned, I had a wonderful time. With me were Dr. Khalid Aftab, who spoke, Mr. Muhammad Khan Achakzai, the former governor of Balochistan, Dr. Muhammad Nawaz Chand, and so many others full time for 4 or 5 years. And Eric Saab was a good writer He was an academic writer, and so writing articles. Lately, few years back, his book on the Karl Marx has been published, and it's not available in Pakistan. I have been trying to get the copy, but then he did other things, and another book also posthumously probably has been published. So Dr. Eric was a man of high caliber and a good economist, I should say. When he came to Sindh University, he taught the students. I just made it that he should be teaching the students. He had heard much about Sindh and said how the students will behave. But when he got to them, they were so good to him, and they were quite, students, good students to learn from him, and did not allow him to leave the university for 3 months and all that. So he had all these sides that one can appreciate. He was a very good host. Every 3-4 months used to invite us at home with his wife, Edith, and so we met a few months back, Dr. Alina Mirza here, if she remembers. So we decided that an Irtiqa Institute is our social science institute in Karachi, and having the people from all walks of life, and organizes so many good things. And it was a priority that some gathering should be held on Eric and his memory, where all these friends joined together today, and we had a wonderful time. I really thank everybody, and I thank and actually what Kalim Saab tells me that we wanted to invite Hamza Alvi as a distinguished lecturer, Eric Rahim ko bulana chahte the, but that couldn't happen actually. But then it was so good. He was also a man of caliber, Hamza and Eric, and so people like that. So I must thank Irtiqa for its very well organized small ceremony, and all the speakers. Really, it's revived our memory, the way that we had passed time with him. And I'm so lucky that I was a student and a friend. And he considered us to be a friend. It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have about like half an hour remaining if someone still wants to join and talk more, or if someone has any question.
Can I come in? Okay, can I join?
Yeah, go for it, Mazammel. Absolutely.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Very kind of you. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Muzammil Haq. I'm originally from Bangladesh, but I'm based in Glasgow. And Eric was my guru. You can say that way. He was my guru. And it's a long life. After my 2 degrees from Glasgow Uni, I went to Bangladesh. But many of you from Pakistan, you will know what.
Muzammil Haq, you're muted. Muzammil Haq Saab, aap mute ho. You're muted.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Now we can.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, now we can.
Now, anyway, briefly, Eric was my guru. Guru is English meant a teacher, although he was not my direct teacher. As I can see, Ezaz is here, Khaled Aftab is here. They are very close friends of mine from 50 years ago. Long time, But anyway, what happened? I joined Statler University in a way, mainly for Eric. Eric was at my interview board, and later on he shared something with me, and many of you will like it. I got a job for Rabindranath Tagore. How did I get it? In my application form, I said my favorite things are Tagore music, and I play tennis. Then Eric told me, because since you like Tagore music, I knew that you are not a fundamentalist, this way. But anyway, Eric had a long impact in my life. Unbelievable. Everything is short time. I can't describe everything. But then his passing away has been a great loss for me. He was always inspiring me in such a great way in my social life, academic life, or family life. But anyway, I thank everybody who have organized these things, and us in particular, as I gather, hope we'll remain in touch. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Sam Muzammil, our friend.
Yes, you are. Yes,
Yes.
you are. We must remain in touch.
Yes. Very good. Very nice meeting you and listening to you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. He has become Buddha. It's very good.
All of us are, as you know.
It's nice to see these encounters and these chance meetings to come again as well. I would like to express my deepest thanks to everyone once again for coming for the session, for being here, especially for bearing with the technical difficulties as we try to kind of get this going off and ground. And thank you so much, everyone. So wonderful. We will share the recordings soon with everyone and the relevant links.
You seem to have muted.
Also very critical as well, of course. Kalin Saab says that if you please make sure to keep in touch with us as well, and we would be very happy to continue to see how we can collaborate more in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for organizing.
Yes, Muzammil Saab, one small request from Ijaz, if you could please share email us your phone number or share it right now.
Muzammil Saab, will you share your email or mobile number?
Give me a second. Do
Yes.
I know this thing? How do I do it?
If you can type in the chat your email address, we can then...
Chat, huh? In the chat.
Yes.
Give me a second. Chat. Good. I will do that one. So
Into my email.
I will type it. My email, huh? My email. Give me a second. Thanks a lot. m.mhhuq@strath.ac.uk. Now, and mobile number, let me also give you +44 7927 479184. So how do I do it now to everyone, huh?
Yeah, you just need to put it into
yes, we got it.
You have seen it, huh? This is it.
Okay.
I can't hide. Go to the internet, you'll find it. And I'm grateful to Eric for everything, right? Because of shortage of time, I couldn't say many things which I should have done. If I have a chance to write my memoir, Eric will get a big place. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll be in touch now.
Can I ask Professor Muzammil Haq if you would like to write about Uncle Eric, then we can publish it in sapannews.com that I shared earlier, which is our syndicated service that we send it out to all different countries and different media outlets.
Thanks a lot.
And maybe
can you send me your email as well?
Yes, I will.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so I have sent my email. Please take it and we can be connected.
Thanks a lot. Let me write it.
Meena can send me the.
I put it in the chat. That's my work email, and the personal one I'll put it also.
And also send me an email, please. Huh?
Gee,
Yeah.
I couldn't actually copy paste your thing, and I'm afraid I'll get it wrong.
It's mmhaq.strat.ac.uk.
Yeah, Strat.
Yeah, Mazammel, what I'll
also
do is I'll put.
Oh, sorry, John.
I'll-
I was just going to say, for those who haven't met Ivan Khan before, he is Eric's youngest brother. So he's joined us today. So he's the representative of Eric's generation.
Nice to meet you, Uncle Ivan. And I don't know if you remember Jalil Akhtar Kuchu. He's an old friend of mine, and he had wanted to also join, but he forgot. So he sends his best in Karachi, from Karachi.
Ivan, you're muted.
You're muted.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
We can.
Where are you based, Uncle Ivan? Where are you physically?
I think it's in Germany.
Can't hear you. Oh, Germany. Okay.
Yeah, Ivan, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. No. I just want to say, I joined this meeting. I'm the youngest brother for Eric. He was my elder brother. I live in Germany, and because his wife was Austrian, we had a very strong contact because of the German language. And I have now really heard a lot of different stories about my brother, which I didn't know beforehand. You understand?
Nice. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah.
Yes.
So, being the brother, you see Eric in a different way than when he's your teacher or a supervisor or even a guru. That's a little bit different.
Of course.
So, but he was, for us, the family, I would say, he was a great brother. Yes, and it was a big loss when he passed, of course. And I'm very glad that I could join this meeting and share all these thoughts with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, and bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mohammed साहब आप चले म्यूटेड हैं मगर वहाँ से आप खुदाफिज कह रहे हैं. I think you're saying goodbye, but yes. Okay, Nawaz साहब, goodbye to everyone then.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you so
Joanna
much.
and John, nice to see you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Took a
Thank you.
photograph.
Bye, John.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
I tried to attach, Khurram, I tried to attach the photograph here, but I don't have the permission to do that.
I'll just send it
Is it
by
gone?
email. I think everybody's on email.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I'll do that.
You will send us the
Oh,
record.
hello. There's a
Bye.
little one there.
Thanks
There's a little one there as well. Alina, good to see you
Yes, same here.
after a long time.
I know.
Yeah,
If-
it's been ages.
We should arrange a visit of you to Scotland, or I should come to US, wherever you are based now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I actually but the documentary, hey, don't you have a film festival coming up? I can share my documentary there.
Yes,
I'm actually in Colombo right now. I'm in
Okay,
Colombo. I just
so,
screened my documentary
my
here. It's
email
55
is
minutes
there,
long.
but I think WhatsApp would be best. I'll send you my number. You have it. We should
I
get
have
in touch. You
Yeah.
have my number. So on WhatsApp, so our festival is now going to be next year, but we keep screening stuff in London anyway, because the festival is based in London. I coordinate the tour in Scotland. So we can look at next year, but definitely I'll put you in touch with it's the UK Asian Film Festival, which used to be the Tongues on Fire Film Festival. So yeah, definitely. I think we should also talk about maybe looking at a short film or documentary, which could be about the DSF and the students movement, and look at that in terms of South Asia and as well as Pakistan. So yeah, I think that's something definitely we should try and organize. And I must say, sorry, I'm digressing, but it's lovely to meet Uncle Eric's brother, Iman Khan. Hi,
Thank you.
we didn't meet his family, and you do look like him as well and remind me of him. And yes, like you said, you know, there are so many facets of a person. And so you have heard from all different facets of his personality. And I think we all are here because we loved him. And it's a huge loss. I think over the years, we have been losing all the people from his generation. And I'm sure that has impact on our psyche as well in terms of the vacuum that has been left. And I think that hasn't really been fulfilled from the younger generation. Maybe Irtika can hold another talk about that in terms of what's happening in Pakistan and then currently. And, you know, like Abina jokingly said, we are the leftovers of the left. So, you know,
I wanted to start a Facebook. I wanted to start a Facebook group called the Left, or private Facebook group called the Leftovers.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm sure. So yes, thank you. And I think we'll also take leave and sending love to his family and John and Joanna especially. Take care.
Sending love back.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Oh. Where is my